The stars look different from this part of the galaxy, Susan Morgan noted as she gazed out the viewport of Exploration Vessel Horizon. The human scientist had spent 5 years on this research mission studying the inhabitants of planet Zorax, a world with intelligent life forms that resembled large felines with scales. Instead of fur, Susan worked in the xenobiology department, focusing on reproduction and child-rearing among alien species. It fascinated her how the Zoraxians, despite their fierce appearance and warrior culture, treated their young with exceptional care. Their cubs, as they called them, were raised communally with multiple adults participating in their development. On this particular morning, Susan received an urgent message from the Zoraxian royal palace. King Dracor, the imposing ruler of the largest territory on Zorax, requested her presence immediately. It was unusual for the king to summon a human directly. Most communication happened through diplomatic channels. When Susan arrived at the massive crystal palace, she was led through corridors lined with bioluminescent plants that cast an eerie blue glow. The throne room stretched before her with ceilings so high she could barely see the top. King Dracor sat on a platform, his 7-foot frame covered in emerald scales that shimmered in the light. His 6 eyes focused intensely on her. "My scientists tell me you understand our reproductive biology better than any outsider." King Dracor said, his voice deep and rumbling. "We have a situation that requires your expertise." Susan nodded, trying to appear confident. Despite her racing heart, Zoraxians could smell fear, and showing weakness would diminish her standing. "I would be happy to assist your highness." The king gestured to a side door where 3 small cubs emerged. Each stood about 2 feet tall with downy protoscales in various shades of blue. Their eyes were wide with curiosity as they scampered around the room. These cubs lost their maternal figure in the Great Storm. Their paternal figure died in battle defending our eastern border. They have no family line to claim them. Susan felt her heart ache for the orphaned creatures. The storm had devastated coastal regions 2 months ago, killing thousands. Zoraxian society placed enormous importance on lineage and family connections. Orphaned cubs without relatives usually face difficult futures. According to our traditions, cubs without family become property of the crown. King Dracor continued, "But these cubs are special. Their parents carried rare genetic markers, giving these young ones abilities beyond normal Zoraxians. They can manipulate bioelectrical fields, something only seen in ancient legends." Susan knew this changed everything. Such genetic traits would make these cubs extremely valuable politically and scientifically. The king would use them as weapons or tools. "I require someone with knowledge of both their biology and development to raise them until adulthood." King Dracor said, "Your research shows you understand our species. You will take the cubs and prepare them for their future roles in my court." Susan felt a chill run down her spine. This was not a request, but a command. She looked at the cubs, who watched her with intelligent, curious eyes. Their fate as tools of the king seemed predetermined. "With respect, Your Highness, these cubs need more than scientific observation," Susan said carefully. "They need nurturing and guidance to develop emotionally, as well as physically. Treating them as royal assets could harm their development." King Dracor growled softly, a sign of displeasure. "Their unique abilities must be harnessed for the good of Zorax. They will want for nothing material, and will hold positions of great power." Susan thought quickly. The scientific opportunity was extraordinary, but the ethical implications troubled her deeply. The cubs deserved childhoods, not lives as royal experiments, yet refusing the king directly could jeopardize human Zoraxian relations, and possibly her safety. "May I have time to consider this request and make proper arrangements?" she asked. The king tilted his massive head. "You have until tomorrow. The cubs will be delivered to your research facility at dawn that night." Susan paced, her quarters weighing her options. The Zoraxian culture valued strength and directness, but also respected those who protected young. The cubs with their rare abilities would be used as political pawns, their childhood sacrificed for power games. She contacted her colleague Olivia Taylor back at the research station, explaining the situation. "I need to make a decision by morning," she concluded. Olivia responded immediately. "You know what will happen to those cubs in the palace. They will be weapons, not children." Does your research mission allow for this kind of moral compromise? The smallest cub approached Susan during her inspection, touching her hand gently. The contact sent a mild electric shock through her fingers, but it did not hurt. Instead, Susan felt a wave of emotions not her own, but the cub's fear, uncertainty, and longing for connection. In that moment, Susan knew she could not allow these children to become tools for war or political advantage. They needed protection, guidance, and love, things the king would never prioritize over their usefulness. Before dawn, Susan prepared 3 habitat pods in her personal quarters, each customized for a young Zoraxian. She stocked supplies, medicine, and toys appropriate for cubs their age. When the royal guards arrived with the cubs, she welcomed them, officially accepting custody. For 3 days, Susan followed protocol, documenting the cubs' development and submitting regular reports to the palace. On the 4th day, she requested permission to take the cubs to a remote research station to study their abilities in a controlled environment. King Dracor approved, impressed by her detailed scientific approach. What the king did not know was that Susan had no intention of experimenting on the cubs. The remote station was actually the first stop on a journey to the outer colonies, where human settlements blended with various alien communities. There the cubs could grow up away from the political machinations of the royal court. Susan studied the cubs carefully during their journey. The smallest female cub had fur-like scales in a pale blue color. Her eyes changed color with her emotions, showing purple when content and yellow when afraid. Susan named her Lily after her grandmother. The middle cub, a female with teal scales, showed remarkable intelligence, quickly learning human words and concepts. She seemed to absorb information at an incredible rate. Susan called her Maya, after an ancient Earth civilization known for scientific achievements. The largest cub, a female with deep navy scales, demonstrated protective instincts, standing guard while the others slept. She was named Nova for the brilliant explosion of energy she released when startled. By the 2nd week of their journey, all 3 cubs called Susan Mama in the Zoraxian tongue, mixing their native language with human words. They learned quickly, adapting to life aboard the small transport ship Susan had acquired through her research contacts. The remote outpost where Susan first brought the cubs was located on an asteroid in the Vega system. A small scientific community studied local mineral formations, there providing perfect cover for their brief stay. Susan registered as a visiting xenobiologist with 3 test subjects. No one questioned her presence, as the facility often hosted researchers from across the galaxy during their 2-week stay. Susan observed how the cubs' powers manifested. Lily, the smallest cub, began showing signs of her bioelectric abilities on the 6th day. Small sparks would emanate from her tiny claws when she became excited or frightened. Susan created special gloves to help her control these discharges. Maya, the middle cub, could already create small force fields when startled. Susan first noticed this ability when a storage container fell from a shelf. The container stopped mid-air, suspended by an invisible barrier Maya had created instinctively. Susan worked with her to expand and contract these fields at will. Nova, the largest cub, demonstrated the most unusual ability. She could sense electrical systems through walls, locating power sources and identifying weaknesses. This skill would make her invaluable to either engineers or saboteurs, depending on who guided her development. Susan knew they could not stay at the outpost for long. Eventually, someone might report back to Zoraxian authorities. She prepared falsified documents showing transfer to a deep space research vessel. In reality, she planned to take the cubs to New Horizon, a mixed-species colony on the edge of explored space. There, humans lived alongside various alien refugees, creating a tolerant community ideal for hiding 3 Zoraxian cubs. The journey to New Horizon took 3 weeks. During this time, Susan began teaching the cubs about both their Zoraxian heritage and human customs. She wanted them to honor their origins while learning to adapt to their new circumstances. The cubs absorbed everything quickly, their enhanced genetics making them exceptional learners. Susan created a daily routine for consistency. First came breakfast, followed by physical exercise to help develop their growing bodies. Next came lessons about the galaxy, focusing on cultures, history, and languages. After lunch, the cubs practiced controlling their abilities, ending with playtime and stories before bed. Susan witnessed their personalities emerge during these weeks. Lily was artistic and sensitive, creating patterns with her electrical discharges and composing simple songs. Maya showed engineering aptitude, building complex structures with her force fields. Nova remained protective, developing hunting skills and staying alert to potential dangers. One night during their third week of travel, Susan received a transmission from Olivia. Her colleague back on Zorax, Zoraxian authorities have classified your departure as theft of royal property. The king has dispatched search vessels. Your research credentials have been revoked. Susan, you are now considered an interplanetary fugitive. Susan had anticipated this possibility. She had created contingency plans, but the reality still frightened her. The cubs sensed her distress and gathered around her, Nova pressing against her side protectively, Maya building a small force field around them and Lily generating soft electrical pulses that oddly soothed Susan's anxiety. We will protect you, Mama. Nova said, her Zoraxian accent still thick but her human words clear. They will not take us back. Susan hugged them, feeling both pride and concern. These young creatures had already developed such loyalty and courage. Will you be sad to never return to your home planet? She asked, wondering if they understood what was happening. Lily touched Susan's face, sending a gentle current that communicated emotions better than words. You are our home now. Her meaning was unmistakable. Upon arriving at New Horizon, Susan met with Diana Rodriguez, the human colony leader Diana had previously granted asylum to refugees from various conflicts, understanding the value of diversity in their remote community. Susan explained her situation, omitting details about the cubs' special abilities, focusing instead on saving orphans from becoming political pawns. Diana studied the three cubs who stood proudly beside Susan. I understand protecting children, she said finally, but harboring royal property from the Zoraxian Empire brings risk to our entire colony. What assurance can you give that they will not find us? Susan presented her plan. We will change their appearance with synthetic fur coverings to hide their scales. They will learn to control their abilities, using them only in absolute privacy. I have funds to establish a new identity. As a botanist studying local plant life, no one will connect us to Zorax. Diana remained hesitant until Nova stepped forward. The young cub bowed in the human manner she had recently learned. We offer our protection to your colony. In time, our abilities can help everyone here. We wish only to grow in peace. The colony leader was impressed by the cub's maturity. Very well, she agreed. But at the first sign of Zoraxian ships, you must be prepared to leave. We cannot risk war with their empire. Life on New Horizon proved easier than Susan expected. The colony consisted of dome structures connected by underground tunnels, perfect for hiding the cubs when necessary. She established a home on the outskirts where the cubs could safely remove their synthetic coverings in private. Their yard backed against a dense forest, allowing them space to practice their abilities unseen. Susan created disguises that made the cubs appear as a newly discovered species from a distant system. Their false background story identified them as peaceful vegetarians with similar intelligence to humans, but different social structures. The colonists accepted this explanation, welcoming the unusual family. The cubs adapted quickly to colonial life. Lily attended art classes, where her electricity could be explained as static discharges common to her species. Maya joined engineering groups, her force fields used only when alone to lift heavy objects. Nova helped patrol the colony perimeter, her electrical sensing disguised as exceptional hearing. 6 months into their new life, Susan watched the cubs play in their private yard. They had grown considerably, now standing 3 feet tall. Their synthetic coverings needed regular adjustments as they developed. Susan smiled. At their progress, they were happy, healthy, and safe for now. But her contentment was interrupted by a distant sound. The colony alarm, rarely used except in emergencies, wailed across the settlement. Diana appeared at her door moments later. Zoraxian scout ships have entered orbit, she said breathlessly. They claim to be searching for stolen royal property. They demand inspection rights. The Zoraxian scout ships remained in orbit for 3 days. Susan and the cubs hid in a specialized bunker, designed to mask their unique energy signatures. Diana and the Colony Council stalled the Zoraxian inspection teams, claiming bureaucratic procedures required specific documentation. The colony leader personally vouched for Susan, presenting her as a botanist studying non-sentient local fauna. The inspection team, led by a stern Zoraxian named Velox, seemed suspicious but found no evidence of the missing cubs. Eventually they departed, warning that more thorough searches might follow. Susan emerged from hiding, knowing they had been lucky this time, but King Dracor would not give up so easily. Over the next year, Susan established herself as Elaine Wright, a respected botanist specializing in medicinal plants. The cubs grew rapidly, now resembling adolescents. They attended school with other colony children, carefully maintaining their disguises. Their unique abilities strengthened, requiring more intensive training to control Lily. Now 5 feet tall, could generate and direct electrical currents with precision. She helped repair delicate electronic equipment in the colony. Her talent explained away as natural aptitude. Maya could create force fields large enough to protect a small building. She secretly reinforced vulnerable areas of the colony. During storms, Nova could detect electrical signals from miles away, serving as an early warning system for approaching vessels. The colonists grew to appreciate the unusual family, never questioning their background too deeply. In a place where many had secrets, few asked personal questions. Susan created a comfortable life for her adopted children, teaching them ethics alongside control of their powers. She emphasized that abilities brought responsibility, not entitlement. 2 years after their arrival on New Horizon, Susan received another warning from Olivia. King Dracor has sent his most elite tracker, Commander Verex, to find you and the cubs. He never fails a mission. His ship will reach your sector within a month. Susan gathered the cubs, now nearly adult size, to explain the danger. Verex was legendary among Zoraxians, a hunter who could track prey across solar systems. He had enhanced senses and implants that allowed him to detect unique biological signatures. They would need to prepare for his arrival. Lily suggested they leave New Horizon to protect the colonists who had sheltered them, but Susan worried they would be more vulnerable in transit. Nova proposed fighting using their combined abilities against the tracker. Maya remained quiet, calculating probabilities before finally speaking. We should split up, she said logically. One signature is harder to track than 4 together. If we separate temporarily using different transport vessels, we could reunite at the secondary location. We prepared. Susan hated the idea of separation, but recognized its wisdom. They had established an emergency rendezvous point on a distant moon with supplies and shelter. Diana helped arrange separate departures, scheduling them between regular supply ships to avoid suspicion. The plan proceeded smoothly until the day before their final departure. A Zoraxian cruiser entered orbit without warning. Commander Verex landed his personal shuttle at the colony center, demanding immediate cooperation. Susan watched from hiding as the imposing Zoraxian addressed the colonists. His 8-foot frame towered over the humans, his battle-scarred scales showing years of combat experience. His voice carried across the settlement square. I seek a human female with 3 Zoraxian cubs. They are property of King Dracor. Your cooperation will be rewarded. Your interference will bring consequences. Diana met him with diplomatic calm. We have no Zoraxians here, Commander. This is a research colony focused on botany and geology. You are welcome to inspect our facilities following proper protocols. While they negotiated, Susan and the cubs prepared for immediate evacuation. They would need to leave separately as planned, but much sooner than anticipated. Susan instructed Lily to depart first, using a small supply ship heading to a mining outpost. Nova would leave second on a geological survey vessel. Maya would follow on a medical transport. Susan herself would remain behind briefly to mislead the tracker. They said hurried goodbyes, Lily embracing Susan with tears sparking tiny electrical discharges. Nova standing tall, but her eyes revealing deep concern. Maya creating a brief force bubble around them all, a final moment of protection together. We will find each other again, Susan promised. This is not forever. As Lily boarded her transport, Nova suddenly stiffened. Her electrical sensing ability had detected something. Commander Varex is moving this way, she whispered. He is not following the colony leader. He comes directly here. There was no time for all to escape. Susan made an instant decision, pushing Maya and Nova toward the rear exit. Take the emergency pod, she ordered. I will delay him. Nova refused to leave, grabbing Susan's arm. We stay together. The door burst open before they could argue further. Commander Varex stood in the entrance, his tracking implants glowing orange. His 6 eyes scanned the room, stopping on each face. I found you human, he said, his voice surprisingly quiet. He looked at the 3 cubs, now in their disguises, but clearly recognizable to his enhanced vision. And the royal property. Susan stepped forward, placing herself between the tracker and her children. They are not property. They are people with rights to freedom and choice. The commander tilted his head, studying them with an unreadable expression. King Dracor has offered a substantial reward for your capture. A promotion to Royal Guard Commander awaits me upon your return. Susan felt her hopes sink. This was the end of their freedom. The cubs would become weapons. She would face imprisonment or worse. She had failed them. Commander Varex moved forward with unexpected speed, but instead of seizing them, he closed the door behind him and lowered his voice. I lost my family line in the southern conflict, he said. My mate and cubs died when royal forces abandoned our outpost. I have served the king loyally since then, but I have not forgotten. Susan hardly dared breathe, unsure of his intentions. Show me how you have raised them, Varex demanded. I must report something to my king. Maya cautiously lowered the force field she had instinctively created. Lily ceased her defensive electrical charge. Nova relaxed her protective stance. Susan gestured toward their home. Carefully, they led the commander through their living space. Commander Varex inspected their home with meticulous attention. He examined the rooms custom-built for growing Zoraxian adolescents. The sleeping platforms adjusted to their changing physiology. The temperature controls set to optimal levels for scale development. The nutrition station stocked with both Zoraxian and human food. The cubs watched nervously as he studied their possessions. Lily showed him her artwork, created with controlled electrical discharges on special material. Maya demonstrated her engineering project, small structures built with the help of her force fields. Nova explained her security system, designed to detect approaching visitors. They call you Mother, Varex said, observing their interactions. They speak of you with respect and affection. These are not behaviors of captives or experimental subjects. Susan nodded. These children lost their parents. I gave them a home and family, not a laboratory or training facility. They deserve childhoods, not service to a distant king. Commander stood silently for a long time. I have tracked you across 17 systems, he finally said. Following a trail of false identities, disguised transport logs, and modified genetic signatures. Most impressive for a human scientist, Susan prepared herself for his judgment. Whatever happened, she would protect the cubs with her life. They meant everything to her. Varex looked at each of the cubs. Who are you, he asked. Not your abilities or genetic markers, but who are you as individuals? Lily stepped forward first. I am an artist. She said, I create images that combine electrical patterns with color. I want to establish a gallery someday, showing both human and Zoraxian art forms. Maya followed. I am an engineer. I design structures that withstand environmental challenges. I hope to build habitats for refugees from conflict zones. Nova spoke last. I am a protector. I use my abilities to keep others safe. I wish to establish a security service for vulnerable colonies. Varex nodded slowly. These are not the ambitions of weapons or royal servants. You have given them purpose beyond their genetics, human. Susan felt a glimmer of hope. What will you report to the king? I will report that the human scientist, Susan Morgan, and 3 Zoraxian cubs died in a shuttle accident near the asteroid belt. Varex said I will provide fabricated evidence convincing enough to end the search. King Dracor will mourn the loss of valuable assets, but will move on to other projects. Susan could hardly believe what she was hearing. Why would you do this? Varex touched a medallion at his neck, activating a holographic image of two small Zoraxians. "My cubs would be their age now," he said. "They died because royal politics valued power over protection. I serve the king, but I cannot deliver these young ones to the fate planned for them." Relief flooded through Susan. "Thank you," she whispered. The commander nodded. "But you cannot stay here. The king's other agents may eventually find you. I suggest the mining colonies in the Arcturus system. They are desperate for skilled workers and ask few questions about backgrounds within a week." Susan and the cubs prepared for another relocation. Commander Varex provided falsified identification documents and transport clearance. He returned to the royal palace with evidence of their supposed demise. His impressive record meant his report went unquestioned. The mining colony on Arcturus 4 became their new home, a harsh environment of constant dust storms and extreme temperature fluctuations. But the colony needed their skills. Susan established a botanical research station developing plants that could survive the harsh conditions. The cubs, now nearly full-grown at 7 feet tall, found their own roles. 3 more years passed. In relative peace, the cubs matured into young adults. Their powers reached full potential. Lily could now generate complex electrical patterns capable of powering entire sections of the colony. Maya created dome shields protecting miners during dangerous operations. Nova developed her sensing abilities to detect structural weaknesses, preventing deadly cave-ins. Susan watched them grow with pride. They had become exceptional individuals respected for their contributions to colonial life, not for their genetic markers or royal connections. She had given them what King Dracor never would: normal lives filled with purpose and love. On Susan's 50th birthday, the 3 young Zoraxians, now fully grown, surprised her with a celebration. They presented her with a crystal containing recorded memories from their childhood years of images, showing their growth, development, and achievements. It was the greatest gift a mother could receive. "We have something important to tell you," Nova said when the celebration ended. "We have been contacted by others like us." Susan felt immediate concern. Others with the same genetic abilities. Lily nodded. A small group of Zoraxians with bioelectrical talents has formed a hidden community. They call themselves the Luminous Ones. They have lived in secret for generations, avoiding both royal control and scientific study. Maya explained further. "They found us through encrypted communications. I established their community exists in the caverns of Deneb 2. They have invited us to join them." Susan understood what this meant. They would leave her. Their true family awaited, offering connection to their heritage and others with similar gifts. It was natural they would want to go. "You should accept their invitation," she said, fighting back tears. "You deserve to be with your own kind, to learn about your ancestry." Nova touched her arm gently. "We told them we would only come if our human mother could join us. They agreed. You are part of who we are. We will not leave you behind." Susan felt overwhelming joy. They still wanted her with them after all these years. Despite finding others like themselves, they considered her family. The journey to Deneb 2 took 3 weeks. Their arrival at the hidden community revealed a spectacular sight. Hundreds of Zoraxians with various bioelectrical abilities lived in crystalline caverns, their powers illuminating the natural formations in brilliant colors. They welcomed the newcomers with curiosity, especially Susan the human, who had raised 3 of their kind. The elders of the community listened to their story with great interest. A human who defied an alien king to protect cubs not her own. This tale spread quickly, becoming part of their oral tradition. Other species came to visit the community, bringing knowledge and trade. The once isolated group began carefully connecting with the wider galaxy. Susan established a new research station focused on beneficial applications of bioelectrical abilities. Medical treatments, improved power systems, agricultural enhancements. The knowledge she gathered helped both the community and outer colonies. 10 years passed in the hidden community. Susan, now 60 years old, had established herself as a respected elder among the Luminous Ones. Her 3 children had become leaders in their own right. Lily directed the artistic guild, creating living light sculptures that communicated emotions across species barriers. Maya designed the expanding cavern system, incorporating force field technology with natural formations. Nova led the Security Council protecting their sanctuary, while establishing careful alliances with trusted outsiders. One morning Nova returned from a reconnaissance mission with troubling news. A Zoraxian royal vessel had landed on Deneb II. The ship bore the insignia of the royal family. King Dracor himself had arrived. Susan felt cold fear grip her heart. After all these years, had the king finally found them? The community prepared defensive measures. Maya reinforced cavern entrances with layered force fields. Lily created electrical disruption grids to disable weapons. Nova positioned scouts to monitor royal movements. Commander Varex, now retired from royal service and living nearby as a trusted ally, brought the first reports. King Dracor has aged considerably. He told them, his scales have dulled, his movements slowed. He brings only a small honor guard, not a military force. Susan considered this information. Why would the king come with minimal protection unless he knows we're here, but hasn't come to attack? They decided to send a delegation to meet the royal party. Susan insisted on joining despite her children's protests. If the king had truly found them, she would face him directly. The meeting location was set in a neutral zone, a crystalline plateau midway between the community and the royal landing. Sight King Dracor appeared significantly changed from Susan's memories. His once brilliant emerald scales had faded to pale jade, his commanding presence diminished by age. Still he carried himself with royal bearing, his 6 eyes alert as the delegation approached. I have searched for you for many years, he said, his voice still deep but lacking its former power. I believed Commander Varex's report of your demise until rumors reached me of 3 extraordinary Zoraxians with a human mother. Susan stepped forward, meeting his gaze directly. What do you want from us after all this time? Your Highness, the king studied the 3 adult Zoraxians standing protectively near Susan. They had grown magnificent, their scales gleaming, their bearing confident. He wanted to see what became of the cubs I demanded be trained as royal assets. What results did your experiment produce, human? They are not experiments, Susan replied sharply. They are individuals with their own dreams and achievements. They have names, lives, purposes of their own. Show me, Dracor commanded. The 3 siblings exchanged glances, then nodded. Lily demonstrated her artistry, creating a breathtaking display of electrical patterns that danced above their heads, telling the story of their escaped childhood and finding the hidden community. Maya generated force fields of extraordinary complexity, forming 3-dimensional structures that shifted and flowed like water. Nova extended her senses, mapping the king's ship, its systems, and crew, then projecting the image before them. Impressive, Dracor acknowledged. But these abilities could have served Zorax. You took potential weapons from our world. Nova stepped forward. We are not weapons. We are people. Your approach would have destroyed what makes us special. Our humanity learned from our human mother. The king seemed confused by this concept. Humanity is weakness. Zoraxians value strength, power, dominance. Maya shook her head. Our community thrives because we balance strength with compassion. We protect rather than conquer. We build instead of destroy, Lily added. Our art connects rather than divides. It brings joy, not fear. We create beauty, not destruction. Dracor looked at Susan. You taught them these ideas. These are not Zoraxian values. They are universal values, Susan replied. They transcend species and planets. They apply to all sentient beings who wish to live in peace. Your Highness, what do you truly want from this meeting? The king was silent for several moments. I am dying, he finally said. The genetic illness that appears in royal bloodlines has progressed beyond treatment. I have no heirs. My siblings' offspring lack the strength to hold the throne. Civil war will follow my death. Zorax will tear itself apart. Susan understood now. He had come seeking successors, not weapons. He wanted her children to return and rule. I hope to find what became of the special cubs, Dracor continued. To see if they might return to save our world from chaos. Their unique abilities would command respect. Their royal lineage, though distant, would satisfy traditionalists. Nova spoke for her siblings. We cannot be what you wish. We will not rule through fear or power. We belong to the stars, not a throne. The king sighed heavily. You would let Zorax fall into war rather than accept your birthright. Lily stepped forward gently. We offer another path. We will not rule, but we will help establish a council of representatives from all territories, a shared governance based on mutual benefit, not domination. Maya continued. We can teach others with abilities similar to ours to use their gifts for creation, not destruction. A new generation of Zoraxians focused on prosperity through cooperation. The king seemed doubtful. Such a system has never existed on Zorax. Our people respect only strength. Susan joined the conversation. Even the strongest king eventually weakens, Your Highness. A system based on shared power survives beyond any individual. The strength comes from the structure, not the person. For 3 days, King Dracor remained on Deneb 2, discussing possibilities with the community leaders. Each evening, he returned to his ship to consider what he had learned. On the final day, he summoned Susan and her children to his vessel. I have made my decision. He announced, I will establish a transitional council before my death, introducing the concept of shared governance. It will not be easy. Zoraxian culture resists change, but I have seen what your children have built here. It has merit. Susan felt proud. Beyond words, her children had changed the mind of a king, not through force but wisdom. I request that you send representatives to Zorax. Dracor continued. Not to rule but to advise, to teach others with abilities how to use them constructively. Your presence would lend credibility to the transition. The siblings considered his request carefully. We will send advisors, Nova agreed. But we remain here. This is our home now. The king accepted these terms. With formal agreements established, communication channels opened between Zorax and the hidden community. For the first time in generations, those with special abilities could acknowledge their gifts without fear of becoming royal property. 1 year later, Susan watched as the first group of young Zoraxians from the royal planet arrived for training. They seemed both frightened and excited by the community. Never before had they met others like themselves. Lily, Nova, and Maya welcomed them, showing not just control of abilities but the ethics of using power wisely. Susan observed with quiet satisfaction her life's work manifested in this moment. Her decision to defy a king had changed the course of an entire species. On quiet evenings, Susan often sat with her 3 children, now fully mature, Zoraxians of great accomplishment. They would reminisce about their journey, the desperate escape from the palace, the years in hiding, the constant fear of discovery, the joy of finding others, the building of a new society. Do you ever regret taking us from our homeworld? Maya asked one such evening. We could have had lives of privilege and power. Susan smiled at her brilliant daughter. I only regret the danger I put you in. Never the choice to give you freedom, Nova. The protector touched Susan's hand gently, causing the faint scars from years of work to illuminate briefly with residual electrical energy. You gave us more than freedom. You gave us purpose. Lily created a small electrical display above them, forming the image of their first home on New Horizon. You gave us love, she said simply. Susan looked at her 3 children, feeling a completeness that transcended species genetics and even the vast distances between stars. What began as defiance of an alien king had become the foundation for change across an entire civilization. The story of a human mother and her Zoraxian children spread through the galaxy, inspiring others to protect the vulnerable, regardless of origin. In the end, Susan realized that her greatest discovery was not about alien biology, but about the universal nature of family motherhood. It seemed transcended species genetics and even the laws of powerful kings. It was about love, sacrifice, and the courage to stand against those who would use the innocent as tools for power. And somewhere on a distant throne, an aging King Dracor looked at the stars with new understanding, watching as his world began a transformation, guided by 3 extraordinary Zoraxians and the human woman brave enough to raise them as her own.